So today we are here to talk about modular kitchen. To begin with, let's say hello to our speaker.
Yeah, hi, Anusha.
Hi Shri, welcome on board. I'm Anusha here. I'll be the moderator today, and we have Shri Pratapin, founder of Arkihive, will be the speaker and the expert of our session today. To begin with, most of you, I see some familiar names from our previous events. So Arkihive is their mobile application platform for materials and for professionals to connect on, connect and network. So previously, we've conducted a bunch of topics on design and then materials. So some of which are like interior estimation. Again, Shri was spearheading the conversation the other day, and we've done some topics on interior lighting, architectural style like minimalism, and then we also had an expert called Sagar who was talking to us about earth blocks and how that becomes sustainable alternative. And today we'll be talking about modular kitchen. So what is modular kitchen about, and how do you go about in layout, I mean kitchen designing and layout? What are the guides that has to be followed? What happens in the range area, right? What are the important appliances or important areas to concentrate at the kitchen? How does an island counter help these days? Why is it become so popular these days? We'll cover that as well. And most important, the popular expectation for today is materials and finishes in kitchen. So we definitely go ahead and talk about that as well. Now over to you, Shri.
Okay, hi everyone. Let me talk about the basic difference to start off with, the history of how kitchen has been evolved, right? When we say traditional, right? So we talk about a platform where you have a cooktop and you have all the utensils at the bottom. So at least for a decade or so before what we have as a modular kitchen right now. So the most sophisticated way of having a kitchen was having a granite slab, and you had walls in between to support the granite slab, and you had slabs at the base and then the top to keep all your utensils and all of that. And it had a lot of problems, right? So when you keep your utensils wet, and it tends to breed a lot of insects, and the accessibility was a problem. When you keep an utensil at the rear side of the base area, you are not able to access it. And so anthropometrically also, we were not doing it perfectly so that it was easy for women to, or women or men who are cooking. It was not easy for them to use a kitchen. And there have been a lot of changes in the kitchen industry, right? So there was a lot of things which got evolved, right? And what we have today, what we call as modular kitchen, is more likely a westernized culture which we have adapted, right? Where actual modular kitchen is supposed to be a piece of furniture unit which could also be taken along with you, right? So each cabinet is supposed to be a separate unit, and when one person vacates a house, he could also carry his kitchen along with him. So that's the whole concept of how the modular, the units of kitchen came up. But we in Indians, we don't really do that. So we have one slight modification which we have done into the modular kitchen industry to minimize the material usage, which I would be talking in the later part of the presentation. And we have adapted to what could be the most suitable based on how we are designing the kitchen. And today we will be mainly talking about how do you really design a kitchen on a designer's perspective, to get you a basic knowledge about how could you go about designing a modular kitchen if a project comes to you, right? So that's the level we are going to talk about. And as a following up presentation to this, right? So we would be having another session where we will be talking about real standards in doing the measurements, right? So modular kitchen is all about after a point of design logics, what we will be covering in this session. It's more about mathematically having the cut sizes or the standard sizes which will influence or which are being influenced from the manufacture industry, let it be a modular manufacturing unit or all the hardwares which are being used inside these cabinets, right? So that will be the second part of our session, which will be taken shortly, right? So probably after a few weeks, you will have that session. But today we'll be talking about uh, what is the basics of designing a kitchen, right? And since kitchen is a very core area where people spend close to around 3 to 4 hours a day, and it is one aspect of uh, a home which has to be really cared about and which has a lot of application wise and a lot of design parameters to be thought when we are designing a kitchen on interior perspectives, right? Can we go to the next slide? So different types of kitchens, right? So there are different layouts in which we could design a kitchen, right? So we will go into deep of all of this, which is like single counter, parallel counters, U-shaped counter, and L-shaped counter, which are like how the layout of the kitchens on a floor plan when you see them, right? So different types of kitchen. Along with this, you have the island kitchen and peninsular kitchen, so which we will also talk about what are the difference between them, right? Before we go into the layouts, right, what is a bare the core logic of designing a kitchen is this work triangle. So any designer who wants to design a kitchen has to know this, right? So this triangle, what you see, the yellow portions, right, what does that represent is that it connects three major aspects or functionalities which happens in a kitchen. One is your hob where you cook. Two is your refrigerator where you store things from which you take and use it for your cooking. Three, your utensils where you wash and keep all your utensils and you want to wash your vegetables and all of that, right? So these three locations are the core points which determines how efficient you are designing a kitchen, right? So the logic behind this, okay, we are connecting these three dots, right? Three different uh, points in the kitchen, right? What is the logic of how it should be is each between 2 points. So we have a triangle where we see X, Y, and Z, right? So any of the legs, let it be X, Y, or Z, should be from 4 feet to 9 feet. It cannot be less than 4 feet also. It cannot be more than 9 feet also. If given said that, right? So where this impact will come? Sometimes we see a sink next to a hob. We see a fridge next to a sink, right? Like very close by, within 2 feet or 2 feet. So that's a bad design, right? We are not actually using the space properly, or you're not designing the kitchen properly, right? So minimum space between any of these three items should be 4 feet, and maximum should be 9 feet, because you shouldn't make a person walk longer, because these 3 points are the points where they're interacting much. So if this becomes longer, they get fatigue of using the kitchen. So that's the range why we have that. And the total distance of, when you sum up all the X, Y, and Z of this work triangle, it should be between 12 to 26 feet, right? If it is more, then what happens is that is where you are getting the fatigue of your kitchen, that you feel that you're walking too much to do any activity in the kitchen, right? If it is less, then you feel very congested. Sorry. So the range between these three things should be followed. These are the two parameters in the work triangle, and this could be implemented on all the shapes, whatever we said, whatever different layouts of kitchen we had. It could be represented. You could see on the U-shaped kitchen, how do you connect it? So the positions can vary. So this is not a definite position that sink should be always on the top and then the hob should be always on the right. No, the positions of these can vary, but the distance and then the addition is what matters, right? Only in case of straight kitchen, right? So you have all of them together. So the basic rule there becomes the gap between each of them. right? Are you maintaining at least 4 feet between them? That's a only logic. And then the maximum distance, because certain cases you tend to elongate the kitchen, so that you shouldn't be doing. So this work triangle controls your kitchen layout as well as how you're positioning each one of them, right? Can we go to the next slide? Okay. Coming into the what I would want to cover here is that all of you should understand the terminology called base unit, right? Base unit is nothing but the cabinets below your counter, right? You have a counter at close to around 3 feet, right? So generally, as a modular number, it is around 850 to 900 mm based on your height, right? And that's your base cabinet to the countertop, right, where you have all the storages. Then you give 2 feet of space between the base cabinet and then the wall cabinet. Wall cabinets are nothing but the things, the cabinets which are hanging on the walls, right? So we call them as wall cabinet, where again it is used for storages. Then that the gap between the base cabinet top and then the bottom of the wall cabinet should be 2 feet. Why? Because that is when your visibility of what you're cooking, if you're doing some work, all that visibility happens. If you have lesser or more, it is not going to be usable, right? And the wall cabinets go from 2 feet to maximum of 3 feet. That's where you can reach. That's a maximum height you can reach. And then after that, it becomes loft. Whatever is the remaining head from your ceiling to the wall cabinet, that's called your loft area, where you have all your dump of all unnecessary utensils and things like that, which are Indian. A lot of us have a lot of stuff to store. So those things go into the loft, right? So these terminologies you should understand, because I'm going to be presenting this across the presentation, right? And so other, I think all these dimensions are kind of very nominal, right? When mostly your the platform height is always between 850 to 900. You have an island counter, you have a uh, U layout, or you have an L-shaped layout, whatever it is. The cabinet heights are all fixed, okay? And whenever you have an island counter and you want to have a breakfast or a bar counter on top of it, how do you analyze, like how do you design it, is basically with the height of the platform to be at 42 inches from the floor, right? And the other details could be customized, completely customized based on what how you want the person to use that unit based upon that. So other than that, I don't think so anything important on the dimension factors. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, coming into the single counter, right? So it's a straight kitchen, right? So as I said, in the straight kitchen, the only thing is that you don't really walk on, you don't have either sides or anything of that kind. It's only one straight kitchen. So the only clause here is that you keep 4 feet between your cook and your sink, right? Because whenever you wash your utensils, you're going to keep it on your left, and you should have enough space for that, and then only your cook should be there. And you need to have a working platform, so you need to have space on either sides of your cooktop. So that's when you're going to have a better utilization of the space, right? And generally straight kitchens, when you have an opportunity of designing the building itself, right? So when do you prefer to have straight kitchen? Straight kitchens are only for nuclear families, and preferably when not much of cooking is happening. It could be a pantry area, or people who say that I don't really cook at homes, right, and it is more like a holiday or a resort or anything of that kind, or you have a studio apartment where bachelors stay and things like that. So where not much of cooking is happening, this could be the best suitable option, and this is a very economical option. And straight kitchens have no dead spaces. Everything is at front to you. Ease of accessibility is very easy in case of straight kitchen, and it facilitates more circulation spaces when you use straight kitchen in your design. But given that this might not be the best option for architects or designers to put in for for uh, for a client who is from India, right? They might be not that satisfied with the kind of storage you're giving them using a single counter or a straight kitchen, right? We can go to the next slide. So coming into a parallel kitchen, this is one of the, uh, uh, I would say one of the very good layouts for kitchen. Whenever you have a, a design where you have something to access beyond your kitchen, it could be a utility area, it could be a balcony, or onto that side you have a bedroom, things like that, and you want to have a kitchen where it falls under a circulation space. If and you don't have a dedicated barrication for designing a kitchen, and this gives the best layout parallel kitchen. And when comes to the work triangle aspect of designing the interiors of kitchen, parallel kitchen has one best way in which you can design your whole layout. So whatever rules we said about 4 feet to 9 feet and 12 feet and 26 feet, all of that will be perfectly fit in a parallel kitchen. It's very easy to achieve that in a parallel kitchen. Given the concern only that, so we said that the minimum distance between a hob and then the other one. So let us say whatever illustration we have at the bottom. So the gap between these two counters should be minimum 4 feet, obviously, because the minimum is said that one of the sides is 4 feet. But preferably when you have a parallel kitchen, try to increase it. Go for 6 feet or something like that. That way, when someone is passing through that kitchen, has more enough space, even if someone is cooking there, right? If someone has pulled a drawer, still you have enough ample space for someone to walk around, right? So in only in case of parallel kitchen, you have to have more space for someone to pass by, right? So that is one circulation addition which we will have to do in this. Otherwise, this is a very good option where you have circulation through the kitchen whenever you have it. So one of the best options where you can utilize. Can we go to the next slide? So coming to the U-shaped counter, the most preferred shape kitchen is U-shaped kitchen because it has more storage than any other all other probably the layouts, right? It has a maximum storage and it has an open kitchen idea, right? Whenever you have a living dining and you have an open plan, right? The best suited or the most preferred option which everyone prefer to do is a U-shaped kitchen, right? And here the best part of it is work triangle is slightly critical here, right? Because you need to have enough space in between the kitchen, but you tend to overshoot on your the overall dimension in case of working with a U-shaped counter, right? So that's a clause here, but if you could intelligently work on your work triangle when you're designing the kitchen, so this could be one best option which most of your clients would love to have. Can we go to the next slide? So coming to L-shaped counter, right? Here, this is very commonly observed counter shape because this any apartments when you look at, right? So this L-shaped kitchen is very common because giving a U-shaped kitchen for any unitized household like apartments is very tough, right? So U-shaped kitchen needs a lot of space. But what can we really do from compact spaces? The best possible shape what we could give is a L-shaped kitchen, right? And it also works really good on aspects of work triangle, and it's very compact, but you have enough storage, and this could be the most suitable option for any unitized design. So it could be best suited for an apartment, right, where you are not hampering the movement, but you still have the openness and you still have the enough storage for your clients to be happy about, right? So can we go to the and one clause with all of these U-shaped kitchen? Can you go back one slide? I forgot to tell you about one shape one problem in all of these layouts. Other than straight and parallel kitchen, L-shaped, U-shaped kitchen have one and G-shaped kitchen has one major problem is the corners. So in a U-shaped kitchen, you have two corners, right? Which we call it as dead corners, right? So these dead corners uh, are are to be like intelligently used. You have a lot of accessories like layman's corner, you have magical corners and all of that, which you can still use them properly. But having them in the design, when you practically design these kitchens, these corners are the most critical points, because mostly it is going to be a dump, or you're going to just give them a shelf to keep whatever unnecessary items, because these are not that accessible. So preferably, whenever you're designing these corners, right, instead of having a dead corner, if you could design it as an L corner, right? L corner means you have both the sides openable shutters on both the legs of the L in the corners. So that will help you design that. That's a better way of designing these kitchens to avoid the dead corners and making it more usable, right? So that is another additional point to be noted when you take up U-shaped or L-shaped or G-shaped kitchen. Okay. Can you go to the next one? So these are the major types of kitchen. So what comes next is our island kitchen, and we have something called peninsular kitchen, right? Which is actually an extension of whatever you saw till now, right? So what is the difference, right? Both are actually same, right? When island or peninsular counters are actually same. What is the difference is in an island counter, you have the unit, the separate a unit which is completely not touching your current kitchen. It could be an L kitchen or a G kitchen or a U kitchen, right? You have a separate item inside your kitchen layout which is standing alone with some purpose for it, right? So that could be that central unit, could be anything. It could be a dining area, it could be people prefer to have it as a cooking area, it could be a washing area, right? It depends on what functionality you bring into that island. But if it is not touching any of your other kitchen units, that's called an island kitchen. But if it one of the sides is touching to one of your legs of your kitchen, it could be L kitchen with an extension. This is what I was calling it as a G kitchen, right? So if you have an L with a U with probably a peninsular, so then that is called a peninsular kitchen. Generally, these counters these days have been mostly used for a fast dining space, right? So it is like a quick dining space where people on a fast run, they want to stand next to the kitchen, get their food served, and then they eat and then move fast, right? So that gets very utilized these days, and it's very trendy for people to adapt this, right? And other than that, one major factor, if it is used for dining, it is easier to design. But there are requirements where your clients might ask you to design an island kitchen where they want to have the cooktop, right? Your hob at the center, at the island, right? So certain things you need to understand. Probably this is on the service point of view, right? So a lot of people, which they don't really understand is, you need to cross your services. If you have a sink, you need to have your water line and a drain line to the center, which you need to plan well in advance, because once you have done the flooring, you cannot do this island kitchen anymore, right? And if you have a cooktop, if you have a hob, then you need to have your gas line, right? Nowadays, no one keeps a gas cylinder at within the kitchen itself. Either it is there in the utility, or you have a central gas line which is coming, and you have a piped gas into your hobs, right? But if that is the case also, right, you need to think about how are you going to bring your gas line and your electrical line when you want to do a hob at the island. So that's one big criteria which you should understand whenever you're doing an island kitchen. And one more major factor on your chimneys comes into play when you do an island kitchen, right? So not unlike all other designs, right? So wherever you have your chimneys, it's all wall mounted. And so basically it has a wall to support itself to hang, right? And it's very simple. And all these chimneys what generally are available are very economical when it comes to wall mounted chimneys. When you want an island with a cooktop and you want a chimney on top of it, that's gonna shoot your cost really high. So when you're giving a budget to your client, if they are well aware of all of these points, that is when you should take it up and do an island kitchen where you have a cooktop at the center of an island, where you have a chimney hanging from your ceiling. Your ceiling should have the support system to hang it, and you should have the piping. So you should have a false ceiling to run the piping. You should have the electrical point. You should have the support system for the ceiling, the chimney itself. So all of this has to be understood by you. And there is an advanced technology which is also coming up in the chimney industry, where there is not much smoke and it is getting purified there itself. That's one option, but end of the day, it's all the cost, right? And again, island counters, you should also think about how much space it's going to take, right? So bare minimum, you should have like 3 feet to start off with, right? So 3 feet is your width of your island counter, and maximum it could go up to 7 feet, I think 7 to 9 feet, if I'm not wrong, right? So beyond that, then the island effect of your kitchen goes for a toss, and you don't have much of a space to walk around, right? So when you have all the sides open and then you want people to move around, and you have 4 feet of space across the island, around the island counter, then the width of it really matters, and how much could you keep as a design perspective, right? Can you go to the next slide? Okay, so these are the layouts and what you should choose, event you should use, and what is the impact of choosing that. So that's what we were trying to explain to you with the different layouts and different options which you have. Right? Coming into materials, which is very important as a practical knowledge. How do you choose a material? What impacts the cost, right? So how do you choose a material, right? So what goes into the kitchen? So the core material is to be very chosen by you very with a lot of knowledge, right? So kitchen is one place which is going to be wet, right? And which might have a lot of dead spots where you don't have much of sunlight, and you could have a lot of storages where you might not be opening it for quite some time, and it has all the dirt collections also, right? Your wastage collections and all of that. So it is prone to a lot of factors, and all of it has to be taken care. Modular kitchen has solutions for all of them, right? And when you're choosing a material, uh, basically waterproof, right? The first point is waterproof, because many places you are going to tend to prone to exposure to water or moisture, right? Second, when there is a moisture and when there is aeration, or if there is lesser aeration, you are 100% you are going to be prone to termite attacks, right? So your whatever material you're choosing, it should be termite resistant, and you tend to keep your kitchens clean, and then you try to wipe them out, or you try to keep cleaning them. So how easy it is for you to clean, right? So the factors of cleaning plays a major impact. So for this, we have a lot of accessories and kitchen design, what you can implement in your design, which will help you to do this and save the factor on the core material and the durability. So durability, I think, might come as a first question from your client. How durable is my kitchen, right? Most of them might be asking you, how durable is your kitchen? What you are trying to give it to me, and things like that. How do you answer them? Probably these are the major 4 points which you need to be aware technically to give a suggestion on which material to go for your kitchen, right? Go to the next slide. So let's come into what I said, the three different areas, right? You have a base cabinet, the one, whatever is mentioned. You have your wall cabinet, which is your three on the top, and you have the loft, which is four, right? And two is your sink area, right? So now there is a lot of uh, thought process what you need to understand where to use what product, right? So below the countertop, so whatever suggestions would be telling, it's out of my experience of how did we evolve and how did we come to this conclusion, right? Uh, this could be debatable also. Some people might have another thought process against this, but this is a perspective of my firm, how we engage on choosing the material, right? Anything for the base cabinet, anything below the counter, we prefer to use boiling water proof plywood, right? If someone doesn't know about what is boiling water proof, right? So boiling water proof is the utmost highest level of graded plywood, which could withstand water exposure to a certain degree, right? It doesn't mean that it is like nothing will happen to it. I think the maximum time water can log for BWP is 48 hours, if I'm not wrong, right? So that's a maximum time a plywood can hold water, right? So anything below your countertop, we prefer to have BWP plywood, right? Which is expensive, and we try to use only for the base cabinet, which is exposed to more of water, right? And then when it comes to wall cabinets, right, here not much of water, right? Never it's going to get impacted with water, or it might be prone to moisture with your air around it, but it is mostly secluded, it's there on the wall, right? So to cut down the cost and unnecessary expenses, so we prefer to go with BWR or MR, right? If the clients insist, or if the budget allows you to use, you can take BWR, which is boiling water resistance plywood, or you could take MR, which is moisture resistant plywood, which is the least grade on plywood, right? You can either use either of them, right? So for the wall cabinet, and the same goes good with the loft, where you don't have much of exposure to water. Either you can use BWR or MR. Now coming into your sink cabinets. So why did we take that separately alone, right? So as a practice, what we try to do for the sink, whatever you do, there could be a day in which your sink pipes could leak, your drainage layouts could get damaged, and water could log in. There could be a drippage, right? So there could be a lot of reasons which you cannot avoid, right? So there are chances where there is a lot of fungus development even if you use BWP plywood for sink area. So what we prefer to use is something called WPC board. These are like a plastic material, right? It's a composite material. It comes in white color, right? It's exactly looks like you get it at 8x4 or 7x4 sheet, right? And we use that, which is stronger, and nothing happens to it. It doesn't develop any fungus, or it doesn't degrade itself on exposure to water. It's more waterproof than a BWP plywood, right? So for any of the sink, so this logic, you could also use it for your utility cabinets, your wash basin cabinets, whatever, wherever you feel that there could be a water logging possible, then those cabinets you could prefer to use WPC boards, right? So that will help you, or on a longer run, it'll help you stay stronger on your kitchen strength, right? So the materials you use for it. So having said that, I've talked about plywood, right? This comes to another debatable point, where if you observe any of the international brands, or whatever Italian or Germany brands, they all use particle boards, right? They have MDFs or particle boards, right? And if you observe the Indian brands, or architects or interior designers, they might be all using plywood, right? There is a lot of debate which we could do upon this, but I would prefer staying on the plywood rather than the MDFs for the simple reason that MDFs have a lesser screw holding capacity compared to a plywood, right? And it is very justifiable to a client saying that, see, I'm using plywood and it has a longer life, right? Comparatively, and it has higher screw holding capacity, so it's going to stay stronger, right? That doesn't mean that MDFs are not good, right? But there is a lot of research done by all these international companies who are implementing this, which are more sustainable. Like MDFs and HDFs are more sustainable than plywood, right? And there is a technology of using a cap and then screwing them to give them more strength and things like that. So, which is on the technical side, which uh, you need an expert carpenter to do that installation for you. If you could get a hands on it, you can also use MDF. But given said that, probably I'll cover when do you use MDF for this. Uh, there is a point in which you have to use MDF. So for one of the finishes, which I'll cover in the later slide, right? So this is about you having what type of plywood. I'm not talking about any brands here. I'm only talking about the grade of plywood. And any more details, you guys, if you're not clear about what I explained about different categories of plywood, please do check our application, Arkihive application. So we have given all the comparisons, which one is what and what is the properties of it and where you should use what applications and all of that. We have given it on our application. You could also check it there, right? Can we go to the next slide? So coming to the shutter finishes. So what happens is that there are a lot of finishes, right? So you have, so all of us search for a lot of options, right? What options do we have? What more options can we offer to our clients? What more new things are updated in the market, right? We have not put certain more categories here. That was wantedly done because we wanted you guys also to explore upon it, right? But I'll be mentioning what those are also, right? When it comes to laminate, when do we go for laminate kitchen, right? So laminates are more likely a replacement for wood, right? It's a paper-based material, right? And the most rough and tough used material is laminate, according to me, right? You really don't have to care about it too much, right? It doesn't really get scratched so easily, and it stays for a longer time and things like that. And laminates, you have a lot of options, color options. You have wood finishes, solid colors. You could do a lot more with it, right? All your cabinets, laminate finishes are very common and it's very economic. The most economical option available for any designer is a laminate kitchen, right? So for this, you could use it on any of the plywood, right? Laminate doesn't need any treatment of backing and all of that because it has a proper finish. It is a stiff paper, right? So it doesn't need any backing to it. It is directly applied on top of your plywood, and then the cabinets have been made, right? Can we go to the next slide? When we come to acrylics, so acrylics are nothing but a plastic sheet, right? It's a composite material, right? You get it in 2 mm to 4 mm, 6 mm also. It's a glass like finish, right? And this has to be really careful when someone asks you for a acrylic or a lacquered glass finish, right? You should be very conscious on your quality, right? When it comes to acrylic, let me finish acrylic, right? So acrylic, when you take thicker dimensions, right? If you take 4 mm and 6 mm, it doesn't have a problem. You can directly use it on plywood, right? You don't have a wavy pattern. Okay, so what I mean by wavy pattern is once you stick an acrylic on top of a plywood, and if you observe, right, if you throw a light parallelly to the surface, you might observe that the light is not uniform. It's somewhere it is bulging, somewhere it is going inside, and all of that. It happens because plywood surface is not uniform, right? When you stick anything on top of that, if that has a reflective nature, and if you're looking at real quality perspective, that's not the best way to do it, right? That is when another type of plywood comes into the play, right, which is called calibrated plywood, right? You have calibrated BWP plywood whenever you use acrylic, right? So you could use this. This is one way of doing it, right? You have a plywood which is calibrated BWP plywood, and then you stick your 4 mm or 6 mm acrylic on top of it, and then you finish it. But if you have a budget constraint and you try to do it with 1.5 or 2 mm acrylic, right? Personal advice that it doesn't look like an acrylic. Still, if you still want to go for it, what you could do is that is when you try to use MDF shutters, right? All your carcass, when I mean carcass, the backside box, all that could be laminated. Only your shutters which are visible, like the red ones, right? So whatever is visible, only that fascia could be done using an acrylic shutter, right? For alone this, only for the shutters, you could prefer to use MDF, right? Why MDF? MDF doesn't have undulations on top of it. So when you use an acrylic on top of it, your finishes are brilliant, right? It gives you a better finish. But one clause here, whenever you have hinges and all of that, do ponder upon the technique of having a screw cap for your installation purpose, right? That's when you're going to have more longevity on your kitchens, right? So on all your operations, wherever hinges are going to be there, wherever your screws are going to be drilled onto these shutters, that is when you need to be very careful on that technique of installation, right? Can we go to the next slide? So about lacquered glass, both acrylic and lacquered glass looks the same, right? It has a depth in the illusion factor, right? But lacquered glass, one disadvantage, it could break, right? If until there is not a sharp item which goes and impacts it, and if it's not a hard impact. So this lacquered glass is one very good. You could really come up with a very luxurious looking kitchen using lacquered glass. But one factor is that it's brittle, and for saving the edges, you could think about profiles, right? So you have very sleek profiles which are protective in nature, which could be used currently what you see as a handle, right? So and you see a aluminum strip on the right. So these are the ways in which you could protect your lacquered glass from impact. But if you have something sharp hitting on the fascia of the thing, it could break. And it is not that always it breaks, because it has anyways a flat background, so obviously it doesn't break that easily. But there is the prone of getting a break. That's why people prefer to go with acrylic rather than lacquered glass. Can you go to the next slide? Coming to PU finishes are nothing but paint finishes, right? How do you have on your car, right? Whatever vehicles, whatever paint you have, that's PU, right? So here again, you need to have MDF backing for it. The shutters are supposed to be made with MDF, or else you will not be able to get a uniform finish. So for PU finish, they have multiple layers of coating, and then you on top of it, you do the PU finish and then paint it. So this is for you to get a seamless finish. Your edges and all of that, when you are very concerned about edges and you want to have some rounded edges and chamfered edges and all of that, you could really play with that. And then if you want to bring in some detailing on top of your fascias and all of that, PU finishes really work out really good, right? And this is also expensive. So coming to the Solidwood kitchens. So this is slightly on the outdated ones, right? So I wouldn't say completely outdated. Even these days, we have designed using solid wood, right? It depends on the taste of your client. If he wants really authentic kind of a design of your kitchen and all of that, so you go for this kind of a hardwood where you get panels and not much. So you need to have a dedicated manufacturer to support this. It is not that easy. You cannot do it with a carpenter's help, and not all factories does this, right? This is a very niche product nowadays. And I think on the cost wise, if you see, uh, the uh, the solid wood is on the most expensive side, right? PU, acrylic, and lacquered, to be on the same range, plus or minus 100, 200 rupees. And laminate is the cheapest option, which you could take forward. And each one has its own advantages and disadvantages, right? Whatever I've explained in this presentation, right? And apart from this, what more options do we have, right? You have something called steel kitchens, right? There are people who really do steel completely, the whole kitchen done with steel. The biggest advantage with that is uh, that doesn't have anything on, uh, it doesn't corrode, it doesn't water resistant, no problem, termite resist, no problem, right? But it also has some disadvantages, which you could observe and then get more details about steel kitchens. That's one uh, new factor or new type of kitchen which we have. And we also have some plastic kitchens, right? PVC kitchens, which we don't really support, right? We have not seen. I think there is advancements which is happening there. We have a lot of PVC kitchens which are hollow in nature, right? But I think these days we're also having solid PVC kitchens, which are also replacement for all this plywood things, right? All these plywood partitions, because that is again completely termite proof. Where you're talking about strength and durability point of view, I don't think so any of this plywood could even come near to all this PVC and steel kitchens, right? So those comes with the plus. And finishes also, I think steel kitchens comes with a lot of PU finishes and lacquered finishes, if I'm not wrong, right? So that two things you could explore on other finishes possible on kitchen outlook, right? Can you go to the next slide? Yeah. So I think this is the last slide on the design aspects, right? Coming into the countertops, right? What do you choose? So generally, these items are there. You have marble, granite, synthetics are nothing but your Korean top. People call it as solid surfaces or Korean tops. Korean is the name of the company, right? And you have quartz and concrete. Concrete is kind of an outdated way, but it's very strong, right? Marble, I really don't prefer to have marble finishes on top of countertop. The most durable ones are the granite ones, right? So what factor does it decide which countertop you should take is you should choose a material with the concern of your client, saying that if there is a hot turmeric oil spills over onto your countertop, which material can hold the stain is only granite, right? I don't think so any other material has that property. But given said that, quartz also does to an extent justice to the resistance part of it, but all other materials could get damaged, right? And the biggest advantage with granite and marble is that it could be polished anytime, even if it gets a lot of scratches. You could polish them any point of time once it gets a lot of scratches, right? But Korean also you could do, but it's a thin layer, not much of possibility. But solid surfaces are when do you use Korean or the solid surface countertops are when you want seamless flow of you want to take your island counter and seamlessly merge it into a dining with a curvy nature and all of that. For all of this, you need to have the solid surface as a countertop, right? And that's when you have that corners and then the flow and all of that to be easily achieved. Otherwise, all of this are mostly based on the color choices between your kitchen. And cost wise, if you see, marble, granite are nearly the same. Then Korean could be slightly expensive than the granite. And you have quartz, which is on the premium segment, right? You have the premium customers asking for quartz. And so concrete I've never used. I'm sorry about that. I've never used a concrete slab to justify what I could say about it. Yeah. Okay. And I think that's about the material on kitchens. Yeah. Over to Anisha.
Hi, Shiv. We already have a bunch of questions. People who had registered during the event, most of it you covered during the event. And we have a couple of questions from the chat. First one would be to use HDMR. You were talking about HDF, right?
Yeah, it's the
So,
same thing. So again, it's a particle board. So it's a wooden fiber board basically with a higher density. So HDMR is the material which generally I think all the European or German modular kitchen companies use. Right? It is like an MDF with a higher density, and it could be a replacement for plywood, and you could take it up. You can use it for kitchen counters.
on countertop, we have a question about G5 and Nano white countertop.
Okay, so Nano White, that's an interesting product actually. It's again a composite material, right? It's a pure white stone top. Whenever you need it, you can prefer that. Uh, it is like a marble, right? It is not equivalent to a granite, if you ask me. It could get stained with that. See, the worst test what you could do upon your countertops is pouring a hot turmeric oil, right? That's the worst test what you can perform on any of your countertops. And Nano White might not be the best performer against it. So with a cautious, but it's a brilliant stone what you can get and use to your design. When you want a seamless white finish, other than your solid surface, Nano White is one of the best options.
We also have a question on how MDFs are termite resistant. Are they termite resistant?
Okay, so it depends on the resin what they use to bind those. MDFs are nothing but particles, right? Wood residues, wooden dust, which are binded together with a pressure using your resins, right? These resins are what is important. If your resins are termite resistant, obviously the MDF is termite resistant. And you could refer to the brand whatever you are referring to for if they would mention, because any plywood or MDF, one of the important factors what you need to look at is termite resistance and what is the waterproof of it, right? So water resistance of it. So there are MDFs which are termite resistant and waterproof also. Yeah.
So we have a question on what about full body tiles for countertop?
Okay, so tiles, one big problem with tiles is you have tiles at 12 to 20 right? That's a max you get. I think 20 that is very rare. What you get is 12 So we have used countertops for not kitchen, but we have used it for other places, right? You could use this as a countertop against your wash basin areas or for your TV counters or any of your artifact tables and all of that. You could still use that. There are a lot of designers who have used this full body tiles for countertops, right? But with a cloth that don't have a hollow surface below that. Whenever you have a tile surface, even all of these stone countertops, you keep one plywood, a 12 plywood at least directly below that, and then you have the framework and all of that below it. So before a few years back, I think we did even make a mistake of not having that plywood layer. So what happens whenever there is a solid surface like this, a tile of 12 and then you have a hollow below that, right? If you don't have a direct surface parallel to it, then if you keep slightly a pointed load on top of it, it tends to break. So you could use tiles, but preferably not for kitchen, because you're going to have a very heavy cooker or any utensils which are heavy in kitchen, which you could keep on top of it, and tiles might break. So not for kitchen countertop, but you can use it for other countertops.
Anita wanted to know about trolleys, best suited trolleys in kitchen.
Which best suited?
Trolleys in kitchen, which are best suited. I think Amita, if you can unmute and explain a bit more of your questions, so we'd be able to answer better.
So I didn't understand what is trolley. You
Yeah,
mean to
I
say
think
drawer
maybe
system?
she meant to say the hardware fixtures or the basket cabinet. I think she meant that. Or you can explain your question in chat. I'm just giving access for you to converse. If you have follow-up on the question, we'll be able to answer better.
Okay. Until then, can
Okay,
we take
I'll
the other
take a
questions?
next question. Any points about backsplash types? Follow-up.
Okay. When it comes to backsplash, there is not a big restriction there, right? You do whatever you want, right? Like it depends on your design. You could take smaller size tiles also, like mosaic tiles and all of that. There are a lot of options which has come for backsplashes these days, and you can also use stone as a backsplash. And we have used lacquered glasses. So I really don't have a restriction of usage there. It completely depends on your design perspective, what color or texture you want to bring in. And I think you can try your real creativity there. So it depends on how well you can do it. And you want to artify, like throw some designer effect on top of it, put some lights below your wall cabinet. It could be a strip light or your point lights, right? Surface mounted lights. It just amplifies the beauty of it, the whole kitchen itself. So I don't have any restriction or any suggestion, but you have a lot more options to choose and no restrictions on that.
So, what are your thoughts on waste management system in the kitchen and its placement? How do you make it easy to use and clean while preventing it from being an eyesore?
Okay, so waste management point of view, yes, we have accessories in Hafley and Hettig, or I think most of the brands have it also, right? So segregation at the core, at the starting point itself, is very easy, right? Whenever you do a kitchen, we generally put the dustbins under the sink unit because that's one place where we are not going to keep the utensils, right? And we have all your soap, dishwashers, and all of that kept there, and towels and all of that. Along with that, we have this double bin option, dustbin options, which are like attached to the doors, right? You have nice options there. So have like two bin concept, at least in kitchen, right? Where you can there itself segregate between wet and dry. That's one very simple way. And you have these days with biocompositors coming into the play, which like you put it on your sink itself, it grinds and then gives you a composite material for your gardens and all of that. That's on the high funda basics, but yes, but you could prefer that. So the basic level, you could have that dustbins. On you want to use the bio waste, you want to use the waste and then convert them into manure and all of that. We have options these days with the grinders and converters, which could give you those options of using the waste.
Someone missed a little bit of the base cabinet section you were talking about. I would like to tell them you could download our app. You can explore the materials on the app, what she was talking about. She could recap them a little bit there and we'll continue taking more questions.
Sorry, what do
Uh,
I have to recap?
on the choosing base cabinet, material for the base cabinet, right? On how Arkihive can help them
Okay, see,
choosing this.
for base cabinet, what I prefer to use is BWP plywood, which is boiling water proof, right? And so why? Because it is the base cabinets are more prone to water exposure or moisture exposure, right? That's why we use BWP. And I think what does BWP and all of that? Probably I think you can refer our application and get more insights about it.
Tanmay has a question on best adhesive to use for granite on plywood.
I'm sorry. I didn't know the answer for that. So I don't
And
know
then
what does adversive we use. I'm sorry.
and next question on soft close cabinets. Are they long lasting?
Soft close these days are, at least for kitchens, we use only soft close, right? So soft close comes in two different or three different varieties in kitchen. One is your hinges, which are soft closes. Second, you have these tandem boxes or your drawers, drawer systems where you have the tandem boxes, which is again soft close. And you have this top lifts or this wall mounted, the wall cabinet accessories. These are again the hydraulic pumps which comes in soft close. So we have, at least for last 8 years, we have used soft close in this, and we haven't had any problems from any of them. But preferably, I think kitchen, most of them prefer to have soft close, and you could, I think if you're taking any branded hardware, I don't think so. You should really worry about it, and it is not that expensive comparatively. Now these days, it's like in mark to your normal hinges, so you could prefer to use soft close. That's better.
We're active on all social media pages. You can follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. If you have more queries, you can write to us. We get all chatty if you have any questions at all. If you have any suggestion for the next event, next topic you want us to cover, would be open for suggestions. You can drop in any topics related to architectural and building materials in the chat. We'd be more than happy to take it up in the next coming months. And we have a bunch of manufacturers also. If you'd want to be, talking in detail about your manufacturing process, if you're interested in any of that, we'll be happy to host you on our event as well. Thanks everyone for being very sporty and being with us the entire session. With some great questions all of you had. And everyone, do be connected to us on social media. We'll be coming up with next event soon.